The screech of tires tore through the night like a scream I couldn't unhear, metal twisting into a symphony of chaos as my truck flipped end over end on the icy interstate outside Pittsburgh. I remember the dashboard exploding in a shower of glass, my body slamming against the restraints, and then nothing but the cold bite of blood in my mouth and the distant wail of sirens that sounded like ghosts calling me back from the edge. In that suspended moment, as the world spun black, I thought of my dad's old saying, "Life's a highway, kid. Don't let it run you off the road." But it had, and as the paramedics pried the door open, I whispered a prayer that whatever came next wouldn't be the end. They airlifted me to Allegheny General, a sprawling beast of a hospital in the heart of the Steel City, where the fluorescent lights buzzed like angry hornets and the air smelled of antiseptic and regret. I was Elias Kane, 28, a welder by trade with calluses thicker than my resolve, and in one split-second skid, I'd become a statistic: traumatic brain injury, shattered femur, lacerations that would scar me for life. The surgeons patched me up, but it was the kid in the white coat hovering at the edge of my haze who pulled me through the fever dreams. The one with steady hands and eyes like polished obsidian, murmuring stats about vitals as if they were love letters to keep me anchored. His name was Brody Hale, a third-year med student on rotation, barely 25, with a southern drawl that slipped out when he thought no one was listening. Soft Georgia vowels wrapping around words like "hang in there, darlin'," that made my battered heart stutter. He wasn't supposed to be there for the overnight. He'd volunteered, trading sleep for coffee and charts, and fate or dumb luck had him at my bedside when the monitors flatlined at 2 a.m. "Stay with me, Elias," he'd said, his voice cutting through the morphine fog, fingers pressing into my wrist like he was willing my pulse to remember its rhythm. He shocked me back once, twice, his face inches from mine, sweat beading on his brow under the harsh lights. When I woke, gasping, his relieved grin was the first thing I saw, crooked, boyish, the kind that promised tomorrows I didn't deserve. Rehab was a grind, a slow crawl through physical therapy sessions in a mirrored gym that reflected back a stranger. Me, with a titanium rod in my leg and a jagged line across my cheek like a fault line waiting to crack. Pittsburgh's winters didn't help. Gray skies pressing down on the Monongahela River, mirroring the sludge in my head. I'd lost my job at the mill, my apartment lease up in smoke from missed payments, and the buddies who'd once dragged me to Steelers games now sent awkward texts that tapered off like bad signals. But Brody? He showed up. Not every day, but enough. Slipping into the ward with a vending machine candy bar or a dog-eared paperback from the gift shop, pretending it was just part of his rounds. "You're tougher than you look, Kane," he'd say, leaning against the bed rail, his stethoscope dangling like a pendulum. We'd talk about the mill's endless shifts, how the sparks from arc welding felt like stealing fire from the gods, about his med school grind, the pressure from his overachieving family back in Atlanta expecting him to be the golden boy who fixed the world. He had this laugh, low and rumbling, that vibrated through the sterile room, chasing away the beeps and drips. I didn't question it at first. Gratitude's a hell of a drug, thicker than the painkillers they doled out. But as the weeks blurred, I started noticing things. The way his hand lingered when he checked my four, the flush creeping up his neck when our knees brushed under the tray table. Or maybe that was just me, projecting shadows onto light. Discharge day hit like a sucker punch. The social worker handed me a pamphlet for a halfway house in Oakland, a crumbling Victorian-turned shelter for guys like me. Down but not quite out. "You'll rebuild," she said, her voice all practiced pep. I nodded, stuffing the papers into my duffel. But inside, panic clawed up my throat. What now? Back to scraping by invisible again? Brody walked me to the curb, his scrubs rumpled from a double shift, carrying my bag like it weighed nothing. "Hey," he said, pausing under the portico as flurries dusted the sidewalk. "You got my number, right? For follow-ups. Or whatever." His eyes flicked away, then back, holding mine a beat too long. I memorized that look, the vulnerability cracking through his doctor facade, like it was the last good thing I'd ever hold on to. The halfway house was a purgatory of peeling wallpaper and microwave dinners, communal bathrooms that echoed with strangers' coughs and regrets. I got a gig at an auto shop in Shadyside, wrenching on transmissions under fluorescent bays that hummed like the hospital lights. The scars itched in the humid summer air, reminders that my body was a map of near misses. Nights, I'd lie on my lumpy mattress, staring at the water-stained ceiling, replaying Brody's voice on loop. I texted him once, casual, legs holding up. "Thanks for the save." His reply came quick. "Knew you would. Coffee sometime?" My heart jackhammered so hard I thought the rod might snap. That coffee turned into lunches at a greasy spoon on Liberty Avenue, where the waitresses called him Doc and poured refills without asking. He'd show up in jeans and a faded Braves tee, medical books spilling from his backpack, talking about rotations in the ER where he'd stitched up knife wounds or delivered bad news to families. I'd counter with shop stories, customers who haggled over oil changes like it was the apocalypse. Anything to keep him there, laughing, alive in my orbit. It felt easy, like slipping into a well-worn jacket, but underneath, something twisted. I was falling hard and uncharted. For a guy who saw me as a patient, a success story to notch on his white coat. I started engineering it then, the arrangements. A checkup, text after a phantom ache in my knee. "Hey, mind if I swing by for advice?" He'd meet me at the hospital cafe, charts in hand, pretending it was official. Then a second opinion on a headache that was really just loneliness, leading to walks along the Alleghenies banks at sunset, where the bridges glowed like veins of fire. Each time, I'd layer on excuses, thin as onion skin. A friend's referral, a nagging doubt about rehab progress. He never called me on it, just showed up, his presence a balm I craved more than air. But doubt crept in like fog off the river. Why me? A busted-up welder with a chip on his shoulder and ghosts in his eyes? Brody was light, ambition wrapped in kindness, the kind of guy who'd save the world one suture at a time. What was I but wreckage? Fall turned the city into a postcard of crimson maples and harvest moons, and our meetings stretched into evenings at dive bars in the South Side, where neon buzzed and jukebox tunes drowned out the ache. One night, over IPAs that tasted like pine and regret, he confessed, "Med school's kicking my ass, Elias. Sometimes I wonder if I'm cut out for this. Cutting people open, playing God." His fingers traced the label on his bottle, and I wanted to reach across, cover them with mine, tell him he was already a miracle. Instead, I said, "You saved me. That's not playing God. That's grace." He looked up, eyes soft in the dim light, and for a heartbeat, the air thickened, charged like the storm brewing outside. Then the bartender hollered last call, shattering it. I pushed harder after that, my arrangements veering into obsession. A fabricated flare-up in my migraines landed me in his rotations clinic, where he examined me with clinical detachment that stung worse than the accident. "You're healing fine," he said, jotting notes, but his gaze lingered on the scar bisecting my cheek, thumb brushing it accidentally or not. I seized on it, scheduling follow-ups that blurred into dinners at my place. A studio walk-up I'd scraped together rent for, furnished with thrift store finds and the faint scent of motor oil. He came, bearing takeout from Primanti Brothers, sandwiches piled with fries and coleslaw like edible apologies for his packed schedule. We'd eat on the fire escape, overlooking the glittering skyline, talking until the city lights blurred into stars. It was there one crisp October night that the dam cracked. The wind whipped through the iron rungs, carrying the distant hum of the Roberto Clemente Bridge. Brody set his plate aside, leaning back against the railing, his profile sharp against the sodium glow. "Elias, why do you keep arranging this? The check-ins, the calls. It's more than just recovery, isn't it?" His voice was quiet, laced with something I couldn't name. Fear? Hope? My throat tightened, words tumbling out like sparks from a grinder. "Because you're the only real thing I've got left. After the crash, everything shattered. You put me back together. Not just the bones. Me." He turned, eyes searching mine, and in that suspended breath, I leaned in, lips brushing his in a kiss that tasted of salt and unspoken truths. He didn't pull away. Not at first. His hand cupped my jaw, tentative, then sure, the world narrowing to the warmth of him, the faint stubble grazing my skin. It was soft, exploratory. A question answered in the press of mouths, the sigh escaping him like surrender. When we broke apart, foreheads touching, he whispered, "I've wanted this. God, Elias, since that first night." Relief flooded me, hot and dizzying, chasing away months of shadows. We stayed like that until the cold seeped in, retreating inside to curl on my threadbare couch, his head on my chest, heartbeat syncing with mine like a metronome for second chances. Winter clamped down on Pittsburgh like a vice, snow blanketing the hills and turning the rivers to steel. Our rhythm solidified. Stolen hours between his lectures and my shifts, texts that lit up my phone like fireflies. "Miss your voice. Lunch?" And nights tangled in sheets that smelled of us, not regret. Brody fit into my life like a missing gear, smooth and essential. He'd crash at my place after all-nighters, sprawled across the bed in boxers and a tee, dark hair tousled, murmuring case studies in his sleep. I'd watch him, tracing the freckles across his nose, marveling that this us was real. He opened up more. The pressure from his dad, a surgeon who'd mapped out Brody's life like an anatomy chart. The isolation of med school, where vulnerability was a liability. "You see me," he'd say, fingers interlaced with mine. "Not the white coat, just me." I rebuilt around him brick by careful brick. Enrolled in night classes at community college for welding certs, dreaming of my own shop someday. Kane's Forge, a nod to the fires that forged us both. The guys at the auto shop ribbed me about my glow-up, oblivious to the truth, and for once, I didn't mind the spotlight. Evenings, we'd wander Point State Park, boots crunching virgin snow, his arms slung casual around my shoulders like it belonged there. He'd steal kisses under the fountain's frozen spray, laughing when I grumbled about the chill. "Worth it?" he'd murmur, breath fogging the air. It was romantic, yeah, Hallmark stuff with a gritty edge, but deeper, humanistic in its quiet insistence that broken things could mend, that love wasn't a fairy tale but a choice, repeated daily. But cracks spiderwebbed in, subtle at first. Brody's schedule tightened, rotations bleeding into weekends, his phone buzzing with urgent pages that pulled him away mid-sentence. "Sorry, babe," he'd text, air meltdown. "Rain check." I'd nod to empty rooms, swallowing the gnaw in my gut. Then came the omissions. A late night he chalked up to studying, but I caught the faint perfume on his collar, floral, feminine, not his cedar aftershave. "Old lab partner," he dismissed, eyes sliding away. Doubt festered, a slow poison. Was I reading too much, projecting my wreckage onto his light? But the arrangements I'd once orchestrated for connection now felt like lifelines fraying in the wind. Spring thawed the city, dogwoods blooming along Forbes Avenue like hesitant promises. We hit a milestone. Brody inviting me to a med school mixer at a loft in Lawrenceville, fairy lights strung like constellations, craft beers flowing. I felt out of place in my best button-down, scars on display like badges of survival, but his hand in mine grounded me. "You're my +1, he said, pride swelling his chest. We danced, awkward, laughing, to indie tracks, his body warm against mine, and for a night, the world was ours. Two guys against the grind, unbreakable. That illusion shattered 2 weeks later. I came home early from a double shift, grease under my nails, expecting takeout and tangled limbs. Instead, voices filtered through the door. His, low and urgent. Hers, sharp and pleading. I froze, key hovering, heart pounding like a piston. Pushing in, the scene hit like shrapnel. Brody on the couch, shirt untucked, her, long blonde hair, red lipstick smeared. Straddling his lap, hands fisted in his hair. They sprang apart, her eyes wide with shock, his face draining to ash. "Elias, wait," he stammered, but I was already backing out, the door slamming like a guillotine. The streets blurred as I stumbled into the night, rain starting in sheets that soaked me to the bone. Betrayal wasn't a word. It was a blade, twisting deep. The boy who'd saved me now carving out my rebuilt heart. I ended up at the river's edge, The Andy Warhol Bridge arching like an accusation. Waves lapping black and indifferent. Hours passed, phone silent, until headlights pierced the downpour. Brody's beat-up Civic, pulling up reckless. He bolted out, drenched in seconds, grabbing my arm. "It's not what you think. Please, Elias, talk to me." Rage boiled over, hot and unfiltered. "Not what I think. She was on you, Brody. In my home." He recoiled, rain streaming down his face like tears. "She's Katie, from undergrad. She showed up, drunk, saying she missed me. I was pushing her off, I swear." But his eyes darted, guilty, and the pieces slotted cruel. The late nights, the perfume, the hesitations before our first kiss. "You've been seeing her. All along. It wasn't a question." He deflated, shoulders slumping. "It's complicated. She's safe. Familiar. You're everything, Elias, but med school, my family. They expect you to play straight?" The word hung bitter. He flinched. "I love you," he whispered, stepping closer. But I shoved him back, the scar on my cheek throbbing like fresh. "Love? You arranged your own lies, same as I did with the meetings. But mine were for us. Yours, they gutted me." Thunder cracked overhead, lightning forking the sky, illuminating his anguish, mirroring mine. We stood there, two storms colliding, the river rushing witness to the unraveling. He begged, words tumbling like debris. Apologies laced with excuses, promises of change. "I'll end it. Tell everyone. Just don't walk away." But the trust was ash, scattered on the wind. I thought of the accident, the flip, the dark, his voice pulling me back. This was worse. A crash of souls, no sirens to save us. Dawn crept in, gray and unforgiving, as I turned from him. "Go fix yourself, Brody. Like you fixed me." He reached, but I was already gone. Footsteps echoing hollow on the slick pavement. The months that followed were a forge, hotter than any I'd known. I threw myself into classes, certifications stacking like armor. Advanced metallurgy, business basics for that dream shop. The auto gig turned full-time, boss spotting my grit and bumping my pay. Nights, the halfway house gave way to a one-bedroom in Bloomfield. Walls lined with blueprints and second-hand shelves groaning under books on resilience. Tales of guys who rose from ruins. Friends trickled back, real ones this time. Jamal from the shop with his endless Eagles rants. Sarah, a nurse I met at AA, not for booze, but the crash's phantom shakes. They didn't pry about the hollows under my eyes, just showed up with pizza and bad movies, reminding me connection wasn't a trap. Brody's texts came sporadic at first. "I'm sorry. I ended it." Then silence, broken by a card on my birthday. "You taught me to heal for real. Be well." I burned it in the sink, watching flames lick the edges, a ritual for release. Rumors filtered through mutuals. He'd switched rotations, buried in peds, dating no one. Part of me hoped he was mending. The humanistic core, the one he'd sparked, wouldn't let me wish him wreckage. Summer swelled, humid and alive, cicadas chorusing from the elms. I opened Kane's Forge on a shoestring in the Strip District. A garage bay reborn with welding torches and a neon sign flickering, rebuilt and ready. Opening day, the line snaked out, word of mouth from loyal customers, plus a feature in the Post-Gazette on Phoenix welders. Standing amid the sparks, safety goggles fogged. I felt it. Not whole, but forged stronger, scars as signatures of survival. Then the call came on a sweltering August afternoon. Unknown number, but his voice, threadbare, urgent. "Elias? It's Brody. I need to see you. Please." My gut twisted, old fires flaring, but curiosity or forgiveness. 1. We met at the old spot, Point State Park, the fountain splashing lazy in the heat. He looked changed. Leaner, shadows under his eyes, white coat swapped for a plain tee. No excuses this time, he laid it bare. I came out. To my folks, the program. It blew up. Dad cut me off, friends scattered. But it was right. Because of you. You showed me hidings, just another crash waiting. I listened, arms crossed, the river murmuring judgment. Why now? He met my gaze steady. Not to beg back in, to say thank you, and sorry. You rebuilt me too, even if it hurt. Wind stirred the willows, carrying the faint tang of steel from the mills. Something shifted, not reconciliation, but reckoning. I forgive you, I said, the words heavy true. Not for you, for me. He nodded, tears glinting, and we stood there, not touching, but connected in the vast American quiet. Two men, scarred and standing, under a sky wide as second chances. As he walked away, silhouette shrinking against the sunset, I didn't follow. Instead, I turned toward the city's pulse, the bridges linking past to promise. Life wasn't a straight highway. It curved, cracked, demanded you swerve. But I'd learned to navigate, torch in hand, heart open to the burn. And in that, grace. Not in perfection, but in the human art of rising, loving anyway, and letting go to forge ahead. What I didn't expect was the echo. How his absence reverberated through the forge's hum. A low vibration syncing with the ark's blue hiss. Clients came and went, praising my precision on custom gates or exhaust repairs. But evenings found me on the stoop, nursing a root beer, watching couples stroll hand in hand down Penn Avenue. Envy wasn't bitter anymore. It was wistful, a nod to what could have been. I dated, a barista with a quick wit, a teacher whose laugh lit rooms, but nothing stuck, not like Brody's ghost. He'd wired himself into me, a circuit I couldn't rewire. Fall semester kicked off with a vengeance, my classes packed with diagrams of stress fractures and alloy strengths, metaphors I lived. One lecture, the prof droned about tensile yield points, the moment metal bends before it breaks. Understand that, he said, chalk dust clouding the air. And you understand survival. I jotted notes, but my mind wandered to Brody. Had he bent or snapped under the weight? A Google search later, masochistic, yeah, turned up nothing but scrubbed socials. His digital footprint faded like old welds. The betrayal scar faded too, from raw to raised, a texture rather than a tear. Therapy helped. A grizzled vet named Hank who chain-smoked outside the community center, dispensing wisdom between drags. Love's like welding, kid. He'd grunt, exhaling clouds. Heat it right, it bonds forever. Rush it, and you get slag, brittle bullshit that shatters on impact. I laughed, but it stuck. Brody and I had rushed, fused in crisis, ignoring the slag of his closets and my arrangements. Hank pushed me to journal, raw dumps of gratitude lists. Morning coffee steam. The forge's reliable roar. Friendships that didn't demand perfection. Thanksgiving loomed, Pittsburgh streets decked in pilgrim kitsch and early lights. I hosted a ragtag crew at the forge, Jamal with his mom's mac and cheese, Sarah toasting with non-alcoholic cider, even the shop's grizzled mechanic, Big Mike, who grumbled but showed. We ate on folding tables amid half-finished projects, laughter bouncing off concrete walls. Midway through, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown. Happy Turkey Day. Thinking of the guy who taught me real thanks. Brody. I stared, thumb hovering, then replied. Same. Forge is thriving. Neutral ground. A bridge not burned. Winter wrapped its arms around us again. Holidays twinkling like hesitant stars. The forge booked solid, ornate railings for lofts, repairs for holiday rush drivers, and I hired an apprentice. A lanky kid named Theo with eager eyes and a stutter that melted under guidance. Mentoring felt good, paying forward the steadiness Brody had given me. Christmas Eve, snow falling fat and silent. I closed up shop to find a package on the step. A leather-bound notebook, monogrammed EK, inside a note scrawled in his precise script. For your blueprints. And the unwritten ones. B. No plea, just presence. I traced the letters, chest tight, and slipped it into my bag. Another layer in the rebuild. New Year's dawned crisp, resolutions scribbled in that notebook. Expand the shop, travel the Rust Belt's forgotten mills, maybe even date without ghosts. The city shook off its hangover with fireworks over the point, bursts painting the sky in defiant color. I watched from the forge roof, thermos steaming, feeling the year's pivot. Not an end, but an arc bending toward light. Brody crossed my mind, a warm ache rather than a wound. Wherever he was, I hoped he was welding his own future, sparks flying true. Spring brought renewal, the Monongahela swelling with meltwater, banks greening like hope unfurling. Kane's Forge hit its stride, reviews glowing online. Elias Kane doesn't just fix metal, he resurrects it. A local mag profiled me, from crash to craft, photos capturing my scarred hands on a torch, eyes steady. Reading it over coffee, pride swelled, tempered by humility. This wasn't solo. It was chorus, Brody's save, Hank's gruff truths, the city's unyielding grit. That's when he reappeared, not as specter but flesh. A walk-in client, chart under arm, requesting custom brackets for a hospital exhibit. "Elias," he said, voice even, eyes locking like old keys and locks. Brody, older somehow. Lines etched finer, posture looser. A silver ring glinting on his thumb, simple band. Heard about the shop. Need something sturdy. We bantered specs. Professional veneer thin but holding. Until closing time left us alone amid the glow of cooling metal. "Coffee?" he ventured, tentative as first snow. I nodded, and we ended up at that same greasy spoon, booths worn soft. Talk flowed cautious. His PED's rotation, tiny patients with big fights. My expansion plans, dreams of apprenticeships for vets. Laughter slipped in, familiar grooves, but boundaries held. No touches, no what-ifs. "I'm seeing someone," he said finally, stirring sugar endless. "Guy from residency. Steady. Good." The words landed soft. No blade. "Happy for you," I replied, meaning it, the humanistic core again, wishing light for light. As we parted under the marquee, rain pattering tentative, he paused. "You look whole, Elias. That's the best revenge." I shook my head. "Not revenge. Just life." He smiled, that crooked grin, and drove off into the drizzle. I walked home, notebook in pocket, pages filling with new sketches. Gates, not walls, bridges enduring. Summer hummed in, festivals crowding the streets with brass bands and street food sizzle. The Forge pulsed, Theo blooming under my wing. His first solo welled a thing of beauty. Clean lines, no flaws. I traveled light. A road trip up I-79 to Cleveland's rusting giants, photographing skeletons of industry for inspiration. Back home, Sarah set me up with a graphic designer. Alex, tall, tattooed, with a dry humor that cut through my hesitations. Our first date. A Pirates game, fireworks capping a win, his hand brushing mine accidental, then intentional. Sparked, tentative, a new circuit, unhosted. Yet Brody lingered in margins. A like on the shop's Insta, a referral from his hospital. No drama, just echoes of grace. One muggy July eve, as thunder rumbled distant, Alex and I shared gelato on my fire escape, legs tangled casual. "You've got stories in your scars," he said, tracing the cheek line gentle. I nodded, pulling him close. "Yeah, but they end happy." Below, the city breathed horns, laughter, the eternal rush of waters merging. In the end, it wasn't Brody who defined the rebuild. It was me, torch in hand, shaping slag into strength. Love, I learned, wasn't possession or perfection. It was the human spark, passed on, illuminating paths we each walked alone, yet never truly solo. And in America's heartland grit, that was enough. A life forged, not flawless, but fiercely, beautifully ours. But life, that stubborn welder, doesn't let seams show so easy. August heat wave baked the asphalt. Mirages dancing on Smallman Street as I locked up the Forge, sweat-soaked tea clinging like second skin. Alex waited in his truck, AC blasting indie folk, a cooler of craft sodas between seats. "River Trail," he suggested, grin easy, and I hopped in, windows down, wind scouring the day's grime. We hiked the Three Rivers Trail, paths winding under sycamores heavy with cicada song. His stories of pixel-pushing clients pulling laughs from me like hidden veins of ore. It was good, solid, unhurried. Alex saw the scars without flinching, traced them with fingers that promised no fixes, just presence. Nights at his place in Troy Hill, skyline sprawling below like a lover's sprawl. We'd cook, burnt edges forgiven, meals shared over talks of futures. His gallery dreams, my shop franchise whispers. No arrangements needed. It flowed, natural as the Alleghenies bend. Yet in quiet moments, Brody's echo whispered, what if, not regret, but wonder, at paths diverged, the multiplicity of loves. Labor Day weekend, the city exhaled in barbecues and boat parades, but I dove into a big commission. Ornate gates for a Lawrenceville gallery, swirling vines of steel symbolizing growth from roots. Hammering late, sparks flying like fireflies. Theo piped up, boss, you ever think about the what-ifs? Like, roads not taken. Kid had intuition sharp as his cuts. I paused, torch hissing low. Every day. But chasing him? That's just melting what you've built. He nodded, filing away the wisdom, and we finished under sodium lamps, the gates gleaming like affirmations. Word spread. The gallery opening drew a crowd, artsy types sipping Pinot, Alex beaming beside me as the owner gushed. Elias Kane captures resilience like no one else. Brody was there, peripheral, chatting with donors in a crisp button-down, his plus one a quiet redhead with kind eyes. Our gazes met across the room. A nod exchanged civil, charged with history's weight. Later, by the dessert table, he murmured, stunning work. Suits you. Thanks, I said, Alex's arm warm at my waist. Life's treating you right? He glanced at his guy, smile soft. Yeah, finally. No more needed. We'd both yielded to our tensile points, stronger for the bend. Autumn painted the hills in fire, leaves crunching under boots as cooler air sharpened appetites. Alex and I road-tripped to Falling Water. Frank Lloyd Wright's masterpiece cantilevered over Bear Run, water rushing eternal below. Wandering the stone paths, his hand in mine, I felt at peace, not the frantic high of Brody's fever, but a steady flame. This place, Alex said, tracing cantilever edges. It's all about harmony with chaos, kinda like us. I pulled him close, kissing under autumn oaks, the world harmonious in its wild imperfection. Back in Pittsburgh, challenges tested the forge. A supply chain snag jacking steel prices. A client dispute over timelines. Stress mounted, sleep fracturing like cheap welds, but Alex grounded me. Nights with takeout and his sketchpad, doodling caricatures that had me howling. Hank noticed at session, you're glowing, Kane. Found your alloy? I chuckled. Something like that. Gratitude lists lengthened. Theo's promotion? Alex's surprise weekends. The city's unpretentious pulse. Halloween brought costumes and candy corn chaos. The South Side pulsing with revelers in masks. We went as welders. Ironic? Aprons over tees, toy torches aglow. Crashing a block party where bass thumped and jack-o'-lanterns grinned feral. Amid the throng, I spotted Brody. Pirate getup, I patch Askew, laughing with his crew. A wave, a shared beer. No awkwardness, just alumni of Ache, toasting survival. To second acts, he said, clinking bottles. Here, here, I echoed, Alex's costume clanking beside me. The night a tapestry of what-ifs woven into nows. Winter's grip loosened early. January thaws melting snowmen into slush. The forge innovated, partnering with a local artist co-op for sculptural pieces, blending utility with art. A feature on NPR's Local Hour spotlighted it, Pittsburgh's Phoenix of Steel. Interviews crackling with my story. Crash, rebuild, loves quiet revolutions. Listeners called in, sharing their pivots, turning airwaves into a chorus of human tenacity. Valentine's, Alex surprised with a custom sign for the shop. Hearts forged here. Playful, profound. We celebrated low-key. Fondue at home, dips of bread and fruit, his eyes reflecting candlelight like polished quartz. I love you, he said, simple, sure. The words landed different from Brody's. Less storm, more hearth. Love you too, I replied, meaning the man before me, the life we carved. Spring equinox aligned stars. Brody's wedding invite arrived, elegant cardstock etched with gold. Join us in celebrating love's next chapter. Neutral, inclusive, no pressure. I went suit-pressed, Alex at my side. The venue. A sun-dappled garden in Oakland, dogwoods blooming defiant. Brody radiant in linen, vows exchanged with tears and laughter. His groom's hand steady in his. At the reception, toasts rang. To risks taken, truths owned. Brody found me later, cake fork in hand. Thanks for coming. Means the world. Wouldn't miss it, I said, clapping his shoulder. You deserve this joy. And as he danced, slow and sure, I felt it. Closure's warm forge, melting last slag. Summer solstice crowned the season. Longest day spilling light like grace. Alex and I planned a bigger trip. Cross-country, chasing Route 60 SIXS ghosts, welding stops at roadside diners. The forge thrived, Theo managing solo shifts, the team a family of sparks and sweat. Evenings, on the fire escape, city humming below, I'd sketch in Brody's notebook, now filled with us. Alex's profile, forge evolutions, horizons vast. In the weave of days, betrayals thread thin to texture. A reminder not of pain but power. The choice to rise, love expansively, humanly. America's sprawl taught that. From rust to renewal, hearts hammered true. And I, Elias Kane, walked it all, torchlit, unbowed. Yet the arc bends eternal. No straight lines in this welder's life. As August waned, heat lightning stitching night skies, a curveball arced. Brody's call, voice cracked like overheated metal. Elias? Bad. The wedding, everything, it's unraveling. My gut clenched, old instincts flaring. He spilled. Cold feet post-vows, doubts crashing like the groom's family expectations mirroring his own buried ones. Separation papers drafted, residency a blur of nights alone. I thought I'd fixed it, he choked, but I'm back at square one. Worse. I met him at the river, that anchor point, benches slick with evening dew. He looked hollowed, stubble shadowing jaw, eyes red-rimmed. No white knight plea, just raw need for the friend who'd once arranged salvation. We talked till stars pricked the indigo. His groom's grace in the split, no blame, the terror of authenticity's cost. You warned me, he said, skipping stones across black water. About slag. I shook my head. We all yield, Brody. Questions what you reforge. He leaned into my shoulder, platonic weight, and we sat in silence, the currents rush a lullaby of release. No rekindling, just witness, the deepest romance of all. Seeing another's fractures and offering torch, not judgment. Dawn gilded the bridges as he straightened. Thanks for not letting me drown. Never, I said, meaning it. He drove off, taillights fading, toward whatever forge awaited. September sharpened pencils and ambitions, my classes advancing to capstone projects. A sustainable alloy prototype, eco-welds for green builds. Alex thrived too. His designs landing a mural commission on a Bloomfield warehouse, vibrant abstracts echoing my steel swirls. We collaborated. Gates framing his art, a joint exhibit at the mattress factory drawing crowds who murmured of synergy, souls aligned. Challenges honed us. A forge fire, minor, contained, but smoke-blackened walls demanding rebuild. Insurance fought, but community rallied. Jamal's crew scrubbing, Sarah's fundraisers, even Brody's anonymous donation, check and signed. Rising from ash felt poetic, walls repainted brighter, racks restocked with purpose. Like you, Alex teased, paint-speckled, kissing my temple. Unburnable. Thanksgiving circled back, table fuller. Theo and his girl, Hank with his flask of wisdom, Big Mike's bad jokes. Toasts to pivots, plates piled high. Brody sent a text, grateful for the anchor, forge strong. I replied with a photo of the spread. Always. Yours too. Bridges held, no toll for passage. Winter solstice whispered endings and beginnings, holidays a quilt of warmth. Alex and I escaped to Ohiopile, cabin nestled in laurel thickets, snowshoeing trails where rapids roared defiant. Fireside, marshmallows toasting golden, he shared his own scars. A coming out in Bible Belt, Texas. Family fractures mended slow. We're mosaics, he said, fingers laced. Pieces fitting, not despite breaks, but because. I kissed him fierce, the world outside howling, inside a hearth eternal. New Year's, we watched from empty Washington. Incline creaking ascent. City below a jeweled sprawl. Fireworks erupted. Booms sinking heartbeats. To us, Alex murmured. To forging on, I added, pulling him close. Resolutions etched mental. Deepen roots, chase dreams tandem. His coastal show, my Midwest tour. Spring bloomed furious. Forsythia flames along boulevards. The prototype aced, grants flowing for eco-expansions. Brody resurfaced stable. Texts of new rotations, therapy triumphs. A cautious date with a barista who gets the mess. Pride swelled, no possession, just joy in his orbit's light. Graduation capped the semester. Cap and gown amid confetti storms. Diploma heavy as earned steel. Alex hooped loudest, bouquet thrust triumphant. Post-ceremony, the forge party raged. Beers on ice, grills smoking ribs, toasts clinking like hammers. Brody came, solo, bearing a custom stethoscope stand. Welded vines cradling chrome. For the healer who started it all, he said, hug brief, brotherly. Proud of you, Elias. Ditto? I grinned, Alex mingling seamless. Summer crested, solstice sun lingering lazy. Alex and I hit the road. 66's diners and deserts, motels with neon prayers, welds at pop-up fairs from Chicago to Santa Fe. Dust-caked, sun-kissed, we mapped not just miles but us. Arguments aired like smoke, reconciliations sweet as roadside pie. Brody checked in. Road tales? Photos shared, laughs texted. A triad of lives intersecting kind. Back home, Pittsburgh welcomed with open arms. Rivers high from rains, city pulsing renewed. The forge evolved. Solar panels glinting, apprentices doubling. A scholarship in my name for trade kids from the crash's shadow. Evenings, fire escape vigils with Alex, notebook passed between us. Sketches of futures intertwined. In the grand American forge, grit and gleam, heartbreak and hearth. I stood whole. Elias Kane, scarred architect of self. Brody, my first flame, tempered me. Alex, my steady arc, sustained. Betrayal? A bend, not break. Love? The human spark passed freely, illuminating all. And in that light, we rise. Together, apart, eternally welding on.